Welcome back to coverage of YETICON 2024, held in Denver, Colorado. My name is Corey, bringing you all the action from round 5 here today. On your left, we're looking at Marty's deck. Marty has a very, very interesting kind of sorceress and Tuknir Deathlock build. Marty has a number of foreign printings of enchantments. So we have some Living Plane. We've got the Energy Flux. There's a Schnellbund on there. I think that is a fast bond. You're going to see land tax, Old Man of the Sea, and Preacher are some control effects, and then a lot of your regular power cards just to kind of get the deck functioning and working. Should be a very interesting deck, and I'll try to help out with some of the translations if the foreign printings ever do come up here during the games. Over here to Dan's deck. Dan has kind of a modified White Weenie, a lot of your standard White Weenie cards with the addition of the Personal Incarnation, likely a choice for the reason of Kev Brockschmidt being the featured artist here at our event. Let's jump on over to game number 1. Looks like Marty is going to be going first here for game number 1. Marty rocking the YETICON 2 playmat, and Dan with the always very cool Demonic Hordes DC event. Great playmat to both players. Marty has the very cool, again, YETICON City of Brass. That's the Casa of Brass for the Casa Bonita with the Mox and the birds. Over on Dan's side, we have Plains Lion. So quick action on both sides. Let's see what Marty can do with all that mana. There is a Tropical Island. It's a good 4-drop for him, or a 3-drop. We've got the Old Man. The Old Man of the Sea, not a bad choice. Can take control of a creature with less power or toughness, I think. Old Man's going to see if he can snag a hold of that lion. You do have to tap it, though, so the lion can come across for 1 here, although the Old Man, I think, is a 2/3 on his own, so maybe it's not a free attack. Taking a look at that card. That is a rather annoying card. Pops up in draft, and especially in limited, can be a really killer card in old school limited formats. There's the old Javelineers. Javelineers coming in with the single Javelin counter. No attack on that side, yep, because I think the Old Man is a 2/3. So pretty good stats just for a 3-mana card in old school anyway, even without that irritating control feature. Another damage from City of Brass, and now here is a Preacher. Preacher is another control card. He does snag the Javelineers who come over with their Javelin, so he does that before the Javelin can be thrown at the Preacher, so good call on that one. Preacher, the player who controls, you target a player, and that player chooses one of their creatures, so the templating on Preacher is actually pretty funky. You target a player with the Preacher ability, then that player chooses a creature that comes through, so you can't actually respond to the ability by targeting things weirdly or activating factories. You're actually targeting a player to put his ability on the stack. So read your Scryfall, read your Oracle text, everybody. We have an attack with the Lion and a block with the Javelineers, so kind of using his own creature to chump his other creature. So right now, Marty has 2 controlling creatures on the board. So the Old Man is targeted to a creature, but it can't take the bigger creatures. The Preacher is not targeted to a creature, but it can take control of larger creatures. So there's an attack for 3. So Old Man and Preacher just coming across into the red zone. So down to 17 goes Dan. Dan taking a look. Dan does have some bigger creatures in there, but you're gonna need a couple of creatures to kind of get over the top of all this control. The Personal Incarnation, Sarah Angel, if you just play one of those down, the Preacher is going to get it before you can do anything with it. The Old Man can't take those biggers, but the Preacher certainly can. So really, Marty is quite well set up here. Chaos Orb is kind of the old backup. No attack with the Preacher here because we have the factory on that side. Not wanting to waste the orb with an aggro Preacher attack, I'm sure. Tapping 3 more for another Preacher. Oof. So again, Preacher targets the player, then that player chooses one of his creatures, one of their player's creatures, to be taken control of. And then the Preacher can, like the Old Man, stay tapped and keep the creature under its control. And you can give it back by untapping and then targeting the player again, but they can just choose the same creature again. So Dan in a tough spot here with his white weenie build and all of this anti-creature tech on the board. We do have an attack with 1 preacher and the old man, so it's an attack for 3. Dan's at 15. Dan looking to see what he wants to do. He's left a preacher back. Once a factory is activated, you can target the player. You can target the player. And I believe that's what the players talked about there as Marty points to his untapped preacher, that if Dan were to activate his factory, Marty would just target Dan with the other preacher. Dan would only have a factory. He would have to choose that factory to give control before blocks. So that's what's happening here. We have an active factory. He's tapping. And looks like we're backing that up a little bit. Player's going to take that back. All right, untap. And looks like we're going to have 3 more again. Dan wondering what to do here. Again, he has the preacher back as backup for any potential blocks that could be announced. Dan is reaching for the dice, going to go from 12 down to 9. Now where he wants to be, and there's a Pendelhaven. That's not going to be much help. There are Swords to Plowshares. I think he has a set of Swords to Plowshares, maybe 3 or 4 swords. That's kind of his out here, but he's going to need all of them. He's going to need all of those swords to make anything happen here, unfortunately. Dan looks like he's just passing the turn. Marty does have a land tax here. Now the math game begins. Looks like he's got 1, 2, 3 lands on his side. And Dan has quite a few more lands. I think he's counting them as well. Dan has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lands, I believe. So there's the Savannah Lions. And, so it looks like Dan may be trying to just explode the hand out onto the board. Kind of overwhelm the 1-for-1 control effects on those creatures. Wisely, so far, staying away from playing out a Javelineer, which could end up just being a Plinker. So Preacher is going to target Dan now, and Dan has to choose which of his creatures to give. And that was an instance there where he could not have activated the factory once the Preacher's ability was on the stack, because you're already past a window of that. He has to choose it. So the player's already has to choose the creature as part of the effect going on the stack, I should say. So the player has to choose a creature to get the effect on the stack, and then there's no responding to it because he doesn't have priority. That's the weird templating with Preacher and Mishra's Factory. I'm probably not explaining it as elegantly as I could. And now we're coming across with what? He's looking to see. Does have a first striker on the board. First strike is online. Pumping is not online. But he is going to seize control of the, that's the Pump Knight, the Order of Lightburn. Looks like we're activating a factory here. Preacher is going to snag the factory. And now that lion's going to come in. Yep, so the lion does get across. Dan's going to untap. It's not a fun feeling when you're kind of in the vice grip of another player, when you've got a kind of a direct strategy like a white weenie or an aggro deck, and your opponent just has a lot of answers. There is a Preacher on Dan's side, so now things could really get spicy. And there is another Order of Lightburn. So just to kind of sum things up, okay, there's a Chaos Orb going to be flipped, and looks like it's not going to become relevant. Things really could be interesting there with giving creatures back and forth to each other as the multiple Preachers are tapping out. All right, so here he comes with, it looks like 6 damage because we've got a Pump Knight, we've got the Factory, the Lion, and I think Dan says, let's just go ahead and call this one game 1, shall we? So both players going to shuffle up, go to the sideboard, and Dan's going to look and see what he can find against the hard creature control of Marty's deck. And here we go with game number 2. Dan's going to be on the play. Both players taking a look, and let's see how we get started. Dan has the classic Plains into Lions play. And over on Marty's side, we have a first turn Birds. There's the Winter Factory. Let's see if those Lions are going to come over for a taste. They are. Marty just looks at the dice, which we're still reading 18 from game 1, and leaves them at 18. Looks like Marty draws his card. All right, we're at 3 mana sources. What's it going to be? All right, a Time Walk. Okay, so no other action that turn. A Time Walk, draw another card, play another land, so get a little bit ahead on the mana. Even more ahead on the mana, I should say. There's a Living Plane. I believe that's a Living Plane. Nope, Sylvan Library. I think we a little pump fake there on the Living Plane. Sylvan Library, though. Living Plane, I believe, is a 4 mana enchantment. We did not see any Enchantress in that first game. There's a Preacher. There we go. All right, so Preacher is possibly going to be coming online, unless Marty can do something about it. Preacher's ability, I checked the Oracle text. It is you choose an opponent, and opponent chooses target. So it is still a targeted creature, but the opponent is chosen. There's the Old Man. But that Preacher is going to come online first, but he can give away the birds if the Preacher gets activated, unless he can waste the birds off the board first and then seize control of the Old Man. So yes, Preacher templating, just read it. Just look at yourself. It's weird. But fun card to play with, tough card to play against if you can't get rid of it quickly. All right, Swords to Plowshares will take care of things. Okay, that'll work. That'll work. And let's see what we want to do in terms of an attack here. Okay, yep. So Factory's coming up. And let's just do the old-fashioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down to 11 already is Marty. After a couple of hits from the Kitty Cat. And now we're beaten in with the Preacher. Yeah, Marty's pretty well fixed on mana, so kind of tricky to take the bird away. There is an Enchantress. Let's see if the Enchantress can snag a card draw here with all this pressure on the board. Might not be in for too long. Okay, Preacher activation, so he's going to take the bird. Bird is tapped, and it's now summoning sick anyway over on Dan's side. So even untapped, it's not usable for mana this turn. Takes away his only blocker. Or his only chump blocker. Here's another Preacher. Rough. And, all right, no Kitty Cat. The errata on Enchantress is that she is pro-white and pro-red. So that would be the reason for a no Kitty Cat attack there. All right, there's the Living Plane. So we got lands that are 1/1 creatures. Lands that are 1/1s. And the pro-white on the old Enchantress might make it tough. Yeah, it is. Preacher's ability does target. So yeah, might not be able to snag that Enchantress with pro-white. So he's just coming for 2. Enchantress still is 0 power. She's an 0/2. He's gonna snag an island though. So the islands are 1/1 creatures. And the lands do have summoning sickness too when they come down, so players will have to watch for that. I have to watch for that as well. Here's another Preacher. So the Enchantress is as good as a blocker on the white creatures, but she can still take damage from a 1/1 island that's attacking in. All right, let's see what we do here. Tricky under Living Plane. That is the YETICON Swords to Plowshares. That's one of the new YETICON Randy printings. Okay, so Dan's out a Preacher. He still has 2 preachers. Both of them are occupado there. And I guess, yeah, Marty has all the simple 1/1s that he could possibly want to give away to preachers. Okay, so 1 planes just came down. 1 planes is going to be summoning sick on Dan's side. What are we going to do with that island? All right, reaching for the bird. Okay, yeah, one of those planes I believe is summoning sick. So I believe we needed to tap a slightly different way there. Not that you still couldn't get the Sarah down, but I think you'd have to have an untapped planes and a tapped factory. All right, there's a Spirit Link and a card draw. Yeah, there's a Spirit Link and card draw for the enchantment. So that is on the Sarah Angel. And, just thinking about the living plane that Marty is playing, the Legends printing in English does have reminder text about lands are summoning sick. They may not be tapped for mana the first time they're brought in, but I believe Marty is playing with foreign living planes. So I think they're just going with the lands are all 1/1s. Here we go. Okay, so let's look at where we are here. Birds are being tapped, and I believe that's another Sarah Angel. That is one of the kind of infamous artworks of Sarah Angel that's going around. I saw a handful of those in the community that day. It looks like he does still swing and attack with the Spirit Linked one, so Marty's going to take 4, gain 4. Well done. Got to get those licks in while you can. Taking a look at a couple more cards. Double Sylvan Library. Remember, everybody at home, you have to finish resolving the first one before you activate the second one. So you're not able to just draw 5, put back 4. It doesn't quite work that way. But yeah, whenever you see Double Sylvan Library, just remember, ladies and gentlemen at home, you have to finish resolving the first one before you can start resolving the second one. So you got to either put back or take life from the first one before you touch from the second one. Anywho, Dan's tapping the birds, okay, and the pearl. There is a Chaos Orb. A lot of juicy targets there. Living Plane would certainly change the outlook of the battlefield here. He's tapping his other island for the Chaos Orb, and he's going to flip on the Spirit Link. Look at the technique from Dan on the flip. Oh, looks like maybe they just do agree to a gentleman's flip. At the 11th hour, last minute, they go gentleman's flips, and then now here we come for 8. Ooh, so that is a tough one. And yeah, Living Plane can stay in play, especially with the Preacher over on Marty's side. It's good to have a lot of simple 1/1s you can give away, because otherwise you might have to give up an Angel or one of the creatures that you've taken. Okay, he does activate it. Yeah, he says, here, take my planes. And then it looks like, Marty is going to scoop this one up for game 2. So that was an exciting finish right there. Double Sarah Angels coming across for lethal. Let's head on to our deciding game number 3. And this one's for the match here. Game number 3. Marty taking a look at the opening hand. Looks like Dan has a 1 card going to the bottom. And Marty also looking to put some cards on the bottom. Looks like 2 cards going to the bottom for Marty. So I believe we are at 6-5. Maybe we're at 5-5. Anyway, Caracas and land tax. Not a bad way to start if you had to mulligan and need to get some cards back. Now let's see if Dan will play into it. Caracas does get the land tax out. No land drop, no play there, so back over to Dan. Dan with the white weenie strategy might not need to play over the top in land tax, especially with pressure on. There is a plains, though, so that's going to turn land tax on. And, all right, there's the pump knight. So Dan thinking that extra pressure may be worth kind of refilling Marty's hand. Certainly could be. Marty probably doesn't mind either way. At least the game can kind of continue here. Both players going to be playing out their action. So we have Plains, Plains, Forest. No cuts from Dan, very sportsmanlike. Dan's a very sportsmanlike guy. Now let's see, will he play a land here now? Will he keep the land tax on, or will he turn it back off now that he's activated it once? Likely going to play one out just because he's refilled. He's thinned the deck out a little bit. He's got all the mana he needs for the next, to get well into the mid game. Dan may never need to play another land again now that he's got the 2. Okay, there is a land and there is a fast bond, so we can play all the lands we want now. That is the one that's called Schnellbund. When I look, if you look very, very closely at the deck photo, you'll see that one. You can't see the artwork. I had to zoom in to look at the card name. Couldn't see the artwork, but I kind of figured it out from the card name. Anyway, we got 4 damage coming across. There's a disenchant on the land tax because he did play out that other plains. We have a fast bond down, but yeah, that won't keep the land tax on. Oh, there is a library, and it's already on, kind of thanks to that land tax before. So we do have a Library of Alexandria. An immediate draw. There is 4 lands. Let's go ahead and just play 4 lands into that fast bond. What's the explosive play here, though? What are we powering out? Taking all that damage. Okay, an Enchantress. Oh, let's see if she's cooking. Let's see what the Enchantress is cooking. All right, there's a Sylvan. Okay, card draw. Very cool. I believe he drew a Spirit Link. Yeah, I sure did. So there's a Spirit Link on the Pump Knight, and there's another card draw. There's a Lotus and a Twister. Oh, whoa. Okay. Dan taking a look like anything I can do here. All right, nope. Looks like had a Swords in hand. I think that was a Swords in his hand, but choosing not to, I believe choosing not to take out the Enchantress. If that was, I believe it was one of the altered swords from the Gettysburg tournament. I may have misseen what Dan put in the graveyard there. As he combined his hand with his graveyard, it looked like I saw one of those. So Enchantress is still online. Fast Bond is still there, so we're going to take 2 more damage, 3 more damage. We're still on that same turn, so yeah, no land is free here. But we've got how much mana? 4 mana now, and tapping all 4 for there's the Living Plane. So a lot of lands on the board, and there's another enchantment, so that should be a card draw. Unless he did Swords the Enchantress and it's just still on the board there, but I think that should be a card draw there, unless I missed the card draw. All right, so all the lands are summoning sick. So 1 factory just came in. There's 2 for the Chaos Orb. Okay. 1 for activation on the... Where are we going? Living Plane. Okay. And looks like Gentleman's Flips are just going to be a destruction spell. So that factory is no longer a 1/1 summoning sick creature. All right. Untapping is Marty. So Marty does not have an army of 1/1s, but let's see if he can turn on a little enchantment engine here. With Sylvan, he did put 2 cards back down, so we know they might not all be heavy hitters. There's a Diamond Valley. Great with all those control cards, like that one, so he could snag one of those creatures and then sacrifice it to gain a little life and, of course, just get off the board. Then he can steal another one. Preacher great with the Diamond Valley. And it looks like Marty is at 7, if the dice are correct there. Dan's still at 20. And Dan has plenty of pressure on the board. But we'll need to deal with that Preacher. There's the swords. That will deal with the Preacher. Good patience on Dan to not immediately get rid of the Enchantress and turn off the possible card draw engine. But yeah, to have it for the Preacher. All right, here's an attack for, I believe an attack for 4 with the 2 factories. Okay, Dan draws, puts down an Emerald. Taps a Tundra. There's a Spirit Link. All right, and there's a card draw. So Spirit Link on the Lions. Yeah, the factories are kind of Spirit Link proof. And I believe he's got lethal on board there. So let's see what we do here. Another strip mine. This is a 2 strip mine format. I didn't mention that in round 5 here, but it is 2 strip mine format. What are we going to do? All right, strip the Diamond Valley. So no gain in life from your Enchantress. And then now we're coming across with all that damage. Keeping in mind, everybody, it looks like, Marty does extend the hand. The way Spirit Links works, in case you don't play with it very often, the damage is still done first, then a triggered ability goes in the stack for the life gain. So if somebody is within range of lethal, they will take the damage first, then the Spirit Link trigger goes on the stack. And so you can, unfortunately, pass away in a game of Magic waiting for a Spirit Link trigger to resolve and give you life, maybe even life-saving amount of life. In that particular attack might not have been life-saving amount. There's a Death Clock, Marty's just flashing. We didn't see any of the Deathlocks, the Tuknir Deathlocks in this one, but there is the cool farming Swords to Plowshares. So excellent match here, guys. I appreciate getting to see you both play. I got to see you both at the main event there and the festivities around YETICON. So everybody, that brings us to an end for round number 5, and that means that next video is going to be the championship game, round number 6. We'll see you then.